When you meet someone, you never meet the whole person. You meet what I like to call their representative. You meet their rehearsed version. The world gets their perfected performance. Their family and friends get the edited version. But the real version, the raw, unfiltered one, only shows itself when they're comfortable, threatened, disappointed, or simply done pretending. And that version, that's the one that determines everything. Most people slip long before the big reveal. You'll catch it in a tone that sharpens for a half a second, a story with a crack so small you almost ignore it, a reaction that doesn't match the moment. Those tiny glitches are the real person seeping through their presentation. But sometimes we miss those cues because we want the introduction to be the truth. We want the potential to be the reality. We want the performance to be the person. Deception doesn't start with the lie. It starts with the moment that we silence our own awareness. Our onion of the day is the Danish Deception. We're talking about the cost of ignoring those tiny truths and how it leads us straight into situations we could have avoided. Hey, y'all. I'm your favorite host with the most, Koko, and welcome back to another episode of Everything is Onions, where we peel back every layer of the truth until it can't hide anymore. Thank you to all of my returning subscribers. You know I love y'all down. And if you're new here, don't forget to hit the like button, share, leave a comment, and subscribe so you don't miss any layer that we peel. Like I said, today we're peeling back the layers of deception, the subtle kind, the strategic kind, the kind that hides in plain sight behind charm and confidence until you finally start paying attention, the kind that doesn't show its face all at once, but reveals itself piece by piece when you know what signs to look for. So let's go ahead and get into the first peel because, woo, this one right here, this is deception with frequent flyer miles. Have y'all seen the new season of Who the Fuck Did I Marry? Because apparently we've reached an international edition on TikTok with the Danish Deception. And this story, listen, it could have been a Netflix documentary, a cautionary tale, and a passport advisory all wrapped up into one. And let me start off by saying this. After the rest of test of Who the Fuck Did I Marry, the Twitter swindler, the engagement swindler, after watching all these men finesse all these women across the world, you would have think we learned something by now. You ever heard the saying, believe nothing you hear and half of what you see? No? Yes, no, maybe so? If you haven't heard it, you've heard it now. And another thing, y'all are not nosy enough for me. Y'all are not nosy enough for me. Okay? Me and my homegirl, Laree, we are inch eye private eye. Inspector Gadget. Call me Sherlock Homegirl. I should be working at Quantico the way I deep dive. Okay? I look up everything. Do you hear me? I look up everything. Because the fact of the matter is, people lie. People lie. Everybody does not have your best interest at heart. Actually, very rarely do people have your best interest at heart. And trust me, I didn't become a detective for my own good. It wasn't for entertainment purposes. I learned through experience. I started Googling every single man that I came across or came in contact with. After I Googled one man, I put this man's name in Google. I shit you not. I put this man's name in Google. And the first headline that popped up said credit card fraud ringleader. $1 million, scammed over $1 million. Eh? I'm so dead ass serious. Like, it was that simple, that easy. And I think I had been talking to the guy for a while at that point, and he never mentioned to me anything about that. When I brought it up, was he honest and truthful? Sure. I highly doubt that if I wouldn't have Googled it, if I wouldn't have saw it and searched it, he was not going to bring that shit up. That has been a constant ever since then. One of the last guys I dated, again, found out his real name, put his name in Google, and do you know that a news article for a double homicide popped up? Right hand to God, I shit you not. A news article for a double homicide popped up. I was shook. I was at a loss for words because what the hell? And I got a friend that know a little too much. That man said, tell that man to send you his discovery paperwork and then send it to me so I can tell you what the hell that man really got going on. Again, ladies, if you are dealing with a man that you know has done time, was in the bank, just got out the bank, ask for that discovery paperwork. Because, sister, you might need to know if that man is a snitch. You understand what I'm saying? You might need to know what the hell that man was in the bank for. Yeah, because these men is not about to come out and tell you why they was in prison. Very rarely do men do that. And it's funny as hell, like looking back at it, I can absolutely turn around and laugh at the fact that I Googled these men and these things popped up. But again, I cannot emphasize that Google is free. Start putting these men name in a search. And if you don't know something, ask somebody who is a certified background checker. If you don't find nothing about that man, that should really tell you something. That should definitely tell you that that man is more than likely lying about his name. He's lying about who he is because everybody has a digital footprint in 2025. And if you cannot search up a man's name and find anything about him, more than likely that's not his name. Moving on. Let's talk about this Danish man and his suitcase of lies, his sack of lies. This man was stacking up lies like he was trying to earn rewards points. Not reasonable lies, not even creative lies. He was lying unprovoked. And one kind of person that truly scares the shit out of me is a person who lies unprovoked for no damn reason. If you can lie to me under no pressure, with no motive, with no benefit, you are a walking fucking red flag because what are you lying for? Why are you lying? I, I don't understand. Didn't he tell that girl he was an Olympic athlete? Sir and ma'am, please, please. This man skipped, he ran track in high school and went straight for he was an Olympic athlete. Again, something that is fucking Googleable. She could have put that in the Google and searched that man name up with Olympics, and she could have easily found out that he was an Olympic liar. But the second she bought into that shit, he clocked her. He clocked her optimism. He literally was thinking to himself, let me see how far I can take this, because obviously she's a fool. And she unknowingly gave him the runway. He took off. He lied about his career. He lied about being royalty. He lied about owning property. He lied about his background. He built a whole European superhero origin story. Meanwhile, his life was giving grifter. His life was giving squatter who overstayed his welcome. And honestly, the only thing he performed at an Olympic level was the speed in which he invented new lies. That's about it. And that is how manipulators operate. They start with believable nonsense. Then, as soon as they sense you're emotionally open, they escalate. At that point, they're not trying to impress you, they're lying to measure you. They want to see how far they can take it at that point. And here's the thing about Onyeka and something that she doesn't want to sit with herself. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe that man. And it's not an insult. That's a pattern across all of these viral scandals. The Twitter swindler, who the fuck did I marry? The engagement swindler, and now the Danish Deception. The common theme amongst all of these stories is that these women hoped that the story that they were being sold was true. Unfortunately, their hope for these relationships and these men is what muted their intuition. That hope is what made them explain away the red flags. That hope is what let the lies stretch further than they should have. And that's where this gets even deeper because deception rarely works on people who are skeptical, who are grounded, who listen to themselves and their intuition, their gut. It works on people who want the connection to be real. They want to believe the lie. It works on people who romanticize potential. It works on people who confuse intensity with identity. So now that we've laid out all of the foolishness and the patterns underneath it, Let's get into the messy middle. The part where we break down why people fall for these situations, even when the signs are clear. How manipulators study your openings, they study your insecurities, how your intuition tries to protect you, and what makes these tactics effective long before these lies collapse. And I want to start with something very real because the girls have been dragging this lady for filth across my timeline since this story came out. Something that I realize is Black women are not a monolith. We don't think the same. We don't desire the same things. We don't even want to date the same types of men. And that's all the way across the board. But what we can clock immediately is someone who is chasing validation more than they're chasing compatibility. And let's be honest, let's call a spade a spade. Shorty was given soft life, hard wig. If you catch my drift, it's given, she doesn't like being Black. We gonna lay it out on the table, okay? She wanted the look more than she wanted the man. She wanted the validation of being chosen by a handsome Danish man, heavy on the air quotes, because I don't know what the hell she saw. She must have had her rose-colored glasses, the drunk goggles on when she seen that man, because I'm not seeing it. I am not seeing where she got this Calvin Klein model from. Maybe it's just me, sister, but I don't get it. Because in her mind, that aligned perfectly with the persona that she's been curating. This woman was literally a contestant on The Bachelor. She was a contestant on The Bachelor, a show that is built on presentation, competition, and idealized romance. A fantasy, if you will. Her entire introduction to televised dating was structured around aesthetics, fantasy settings, and men performing love with scripts and curated experiences. Like, hello, that shapes your love map, whether you want to admit it or not. And to top it off, she met this man in a private members only club, a place where status, wealth, and a curated identity is the entire point of being there. These people are not at country clubs and private members only clubs for no reason. Okay? They are there to be amongst wealthy people. Okay? It's giving luxury. That is the whole damn point. Nobody is joining a $200,000 private members only club for nothing. I used to work in a country club. Trust me, I know. These are spaces where people expect others to be who they claim they are. Because most of the time in these spaces, you do have to be who the hell you say you are to get into these places. I feel like the country club that I used to work at, actually, their initiation fee was like $150,000 a year. And then they had to spend like $4,000 a month at the club. Be fucking for real. You are not going into these clubs. If you have been in them or you frequent or you are a member, you know they not letting anybody up in there. You have to have money on. Okay? You have to have the funds, the cash. You have to have the dollars and the status and the titles to be up in these places, unless you coming as somebody's guest. The people who are there usually are who they say they are. So her brain wasn't just taking him in, it was taking in the backdrop, the ambiance, the aesthetic, the setting, the social context, and using all of this to tell herself, I hit the jackpot. I had the lottery, boo. So by the time he even opened his mouth to lie, he had already decided his presentation was his character. She wasn't evaluating him. She was validating the idea of him. She was used to being in white spaces. This was not anything new for her. She essentially was the token Black girl in these spaces also. The novelty, the exception, the one who stands out. So when this man showed interest in her, it didn't just feel romantic, it felt affirming. It reinforced a story she had been telling herself about her desirability and status. And that is where love maps come in. Everybody has a love map. It is the internal blueprint for what we think love should be, what it should feel like, look like, and be delivered as. Your love map comes from your upbringing, your insecurities, your culture, your past relationships, and the gaps you're still trying to fill in. What you chase is often what you didn't receive. What you're looking for usually are the things that you lack, the things that you did not have, the things you didn't get. What you choose is often what confirms your worth. For her, it wasn't just the attention, it was the symbolism attached to who it came from. It made her feel affirmed in a role she had been performing for years, the palatable Black girl in white spaces. And once someone taps into that kind of validation, especially validation tied to identity, your inner alarms start to dim. They get quiet. Your cautions start to loosen. You make room for things you would not tolerate normally. And the danger in this is that when your validation becomes the mission, judgment becomes an option. It becomes a non motherfucking factor. And that is where the foundation of all of this comes into play with intuition and discernment. Because once you strip away the aesthetics and the validation and the, oh, he seemed nice, like he seems like he's a catch, what you're left with is the truth that your body knew long before your mind wanted to admit it, because intuition is not loud. It's not dramatic. It does not scream. It actually whispers, and it whispers very early. Intuition is the part of you that picks up on dynamics your conscious mind has not processed yet. It catches patterns, tone shifts, body language, inconsistencies, energy changes, and emotional mismatches before you have the language to describe them. Think of it like your nervous system doing math your brain hasn't solved out loud yet. Discernment is when you stop debating those signals and start listening to them. The bigger issue is the fact that most people don't have a discernment problem. They have an avoidance problem. They feel the shift, but they don't want to investigate it. They sense the mismatch, but they don't want to lose the connection. They notice these inconsistencies, but they hope it fixes itself. And my sister, it's not gonna work itself out. It's not. Hope competes with intuition. Desire competes with reality. And validation competes with honesty. And a manipulator loves that internal conflict. They actually rely on it. Because one thing that experience teaches you is that intuition fine tunes and sharpens itself with exposure. When you've lived long enough, when you've seen certain patterns, what's called pattern recognition, when you have been burned and had to rebuild yourself, your internal radar starts catching things instantly off the top. But when you're inexperienced in a specific area, it doesn't matter how old you are. Your intuition does not know what inputs to pull from yet. And again, a seasoned manipulator knows that. They can smell it from a mile away. They can sense inexperience, not naivete, not stupidity, but inexperience. They can tell when someone has not dealt with a liar of their caliber yet. They can tell when someone hasn't seen that particular mask, that particular charm, that particular form of attention. That's why these situations do not only happen to young people, they happen to people who simply haven't been challenged in that way. And once a manipulator senses that gap, they move on to the next stage, boundary testing. Manipulators never start out with outright chaos. They don't lead with wild lies or outbursts. They usually ease you into the dysfunction like a warm bath. Okay? They start with micro violations, a small inconsistency, a vague answer, a story that changes slightly, a detail that doesn't add up, a tone that shifts just a little too sharp. Okay? They're watching your reaction, not their own behavior. They are collecting your responses as data. Did you freeze up? Did you frown? Did you question them? Did you forget it? Did you explain it away yourself? Every time you give grace instead of clarity, they learn how far they can take it. And that is what makes boundary testing so dangerous. It doesn't feel dramatic. It feels like maybe it's not that serious, or maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I misunderstood them. It feels like maybe I'm bugging. But those tiny moments are diagnostic. They're not accidental. They're not quirks. They are intentional probes for information. Manipulators aren't testing your kindness, they're measuring your awareness. The Danish Deception did this perfectly. His early lies weren't even clever. They were actually very basic, but she accepted them off GP. And once he saw she accepted them, the lies got bigger. The stories got bolder. The timeline stretched even further because he had already mapped out her tolerance. He knew how far he could take it. Manipulation escalates exactly at the rate of your silence. Start ringing the fucking alarm like Beyonce on these niggas. Do you hear me? Once they understand how much you'll excuse, they'll move on to the most dangerous layer, the mask. People assume masks are all about mystery. No, masks are about familiarity. Manipulators don't present some wild persona you've never seen before. They actually present the most digestible version of a person you think you've always wanted. They mirror your values to you. They mimic empathy. They imitate stability. They copy confidence. They rehearse charm. They study your reactions and tailor their personality to your expectations. It's not authenticity, it's a performance. And here's the psychology behind all of this. Masks crack under pressure. They crack when someone feels denied. They crack when you question them. They crack when they start to lose control. They crack when the performance becomes exhausting. They've done this for too long. Okay? That is why the truest version of a person usually appears in conflict, disappointment, or frustration, never in comfort. And since we're talking about masks, let me bring up somebody who is always so fascinating to me, the BTK killer. And not for fear, but for psychology purposes only. The BTK killer fooled an entire town for decades. He fooled everybody. He was a husband, a father, a community leader, the picture of responsibility and normalcy. People saw his presentation and assumed it reflected his identity, but it was a mask, a well crafted, socially acceptable mask. It allowed him to be a serial killer on his downtime and be a husband and father and everything else in the rest of his time. That is the danger of charisma and presentation. People believe the costume more than the character. And narcissistic personalities do this exceptionally well, not because they are smart, but because they are obsessed with this image. They curate a persona the same way influencers curate feeds: clean, polished, strategic, inoffensive, flattering. They use attention as confirmation of control. And I think something that's even wilder to me is the fact that the Danish Deceiver wasn't even good at masking. He just looked the part in her mind. She literally bought into this shit because the man was white. If this had been a black man, she would have been saw through this bullshit. Okay? Like, something else that I think was crazy was the fact that he said to her, "Oh, you're Nigerian. I thought you like knew what the hell was going on." Not only is that like a slap in the face, but that's also racist. What the hell do you mean? Because I'm Nigerian, you thought I was a part of this. I knew this was a scam. Like, the more details I hear about this, it's crazy. He simply looked the part in her mind. He had the aesthetic, he had the accent, he had the environment, and she had the desire for all of it to be true. That's how the mask works. Not because it is believable, but because you want it to be. Once the mask is in place, manipulators move into the next phase, the binding phase, the process of securing your attachment before they reveal who they really are. Once that mask is in place, the performance feels believable enough. And binding is not love, it is strategy. It is attachment engineering. It is securing your emotional access before revealing their true character. And there are a few different types of binding, but let's start with physical binding because this is the trap that people fall into the quickest. Manipulators rush closeness, they accelerate connections. They want to see you every day. They call you all day and night. They text you nonstop. They pull you into their world quickly and make everything feel intense and inevitable, like this is fate. And the reason this works is biological. Your body releases chemicals that mimic long term bonding. But here's the part people don't want to talk about: children. Children are the oldest physical binding tactic in history. A child is a lifelong tie. You can block somebody, you can move states, you can change your number. But if you share a child, you are connected to this person forever. And a manipulator knows that. Pregnancy, wanted or not, becomes a tool, a trap, a guarantee of access. Once there is a child involved, the game changes. Your decisions get heavier because you're not just moving for yourself anymore. There is a child involved. Your freedom gets smaller, and leaving becomes a negotiation and no longer a choice. Then you have financial binding, the classic my bank messed up storyline. And in her case, this was not just, oh, can I borrow $40? This was not, can you send me a little money for lunch? Martin scammed her, her family, and her friends out of thousands, hundreds of thousands. $300,000 to be exact. That was the last number I saw. He drained accounts. He manipulated her into sending money overseas. He leveraged his lies to recruit her people into the nonsense too. And when you financially entangled yourself that deeply with someone, it psychologically ties you to the relationship because now it's not just about the heartbreak. Now it's debt, shame, embarrassment, and also damage control. Because I cannot lie to you. I say this all the time. Anytime a man asks me for money, that is the fastest way to get me out the door. I don't give a damn if it was $5. I would never, I would never put anything in my name for a man that was not my husband. I would even be skeptical if it was my husband. I wouldn't so much as put a pizza in my fucking name for a man. So asking me for money would get me out of there quickly. I am going to eliminate a man who asks me for money so fast it'll make his head spin. I'm not going for that. Homie, don't play that. Okay? You not finna get over on me for $5 fucking, let alone $300,000. And now you have my family and my friends involved. I'm not gonna lie to you. I will be on the black market looking for contractors. If you catch my drift, you're not gonna be here too much longer. You finna give me that money on back. Okay? I'm not wrong. Homie, don't play that. Now let's move on to the deepest, most emotionally taxing form of manipulation, which is emotional binding. And I want to go a little bit deeper here because this is the one that I think that people underestimate the most. The reason why emotional binding works is because we want our partners to know us intimately. We want them to know the ins and outs of us. We want them to know who we are and where we came from. We want to feel understood. We want to be seen beyond surface level traits. So when a manipulator listens carefully, they ask deep questions and they encourage vulnerability, you start to feel safe. But unfortunately, it's not safety, it's surveillance. This person is literally your fucking ops. They are an undercover agent at this point. They're not building intimacy, they're building a blueprint. They're taking notes on what breaks you down. They're identifying your soft spots. They're learning which insecurities silence you. They're learning which wounds make you compliant. They're learning what they can use against you later, not to use you, not to love you, but to control you. Using someone's insecurities against them is the quickest way to dismantle their confidence, to isolate them, to create emotional dependency. That's why emotional binding leaves the deepest scars, the ones you cannot see, because you handed them the materials that they use to hurt you. And even though it's not your fault, it feels personal because it was personal. They quite literally are doing this on purpose. And then comes the love bombing, the excessive affection, attention, praise, gifts, intensity, and validation delivered at a pace your intuition cannot regulate. The psychological high is real. Dopamine, oxytocin, adrenaline, all firing at the same damn time, all at once. Your brain bonds long before your logic can even evaluate the situation. You don't even know what the hell is going on, but it feels good. So you're going along with it. Your brain doesn't even have time to catch up, to pause, to question what the hell is going on because all of these things feel good, which is completely understandable. But that is when you have to take a step back and think about what the hell is even going on. It's okay to be skeptical. Actually, I encourage it. And last but not least, spiritual binding. Depending on someone's culture, this is a very real tactic. I was talking about this in a previous episode when I was talking about Brene and Tim and Nakira because everybody was saying that Brene didn't put roots on that man. She didn't did some type of root work, and that's the reason why this shit is backfiring. Some people absolutely use root work, intention, rituals, candle magic, prayers, love spells to create psychological attachment. There I said it. Even if you don't believe in literal root work, the idea of spiritual connection, the we were meant to be together, our souls chose each other, this is my destiny, becomes a leash. It convinces you that the relationship is bigger than your boundaries. When you combine physical binding, financial entanglement, emotional extraction, love bombing, and then spiritual manipulation, by the time all of those tactics overlap, you're not bonded. You're surrounded, sister. You in some deep shit. You are in a pool full of sharks. You are surrounded. Once all of those binding tactics are in place, the next phase is the collapse, the fallout, the fall apart, the slow unraveling, the moment when the performance can't keep up with the reality anymore. And the spell never breaks all at once, it breaks in fragments, a detail here, a little tone shift there, a little snappy remark here and there, a story where 1 plus 1 equaled 11, a reaction that exposes more than he intended. It's never some dramatic confrontation. It's a pattern slipping, and your body always notices first. Your stomach sinks to your ass. Your chest gets tight. The room feels like it's losing air. The conversations feel off. Something in you starts backing up before your mind can even explain why. That is your intuition, the same intuition you tried to quiet earlier. It's coming back online. The Bluetooth has connected. And that is when the mask starts glitching. The charm gets patchy. The patience thins out. His lies stop having rhythm. The persona that once looked so polished at first starts to look like a performance at this point. And the more the mask slips, the sharper your perception gets. It's like when you go get your eyes checked and you sit down with a little thing that has the hot air balloon and it adjusts and you're looking at it, you can see the hot air balloon, but then it shifts and you can see that motherfucker clear as day. That's what the hell I'm talking about. And here's another thing that people don't talk about enough. The moment that that spell breaks, it's not only emotional, it's also informational. Your brain has finally caught up to what your spirit clocked day one. You start connecting dots you didn't even realize were there. You replay moments that suddenly make sense to you. You revisit conversations with a completely new context. You see everything without the filter. You take the rose colored glasses off. It is the moment where things stop being complicated and start being clear. Because once you finally recognize the pattern, the timeline, the tactics, the manipulation style, the whole situation stops feeling personal and you begin to understand he never had some deep connection with you. He was running a scam, my dear. He was reading off a script, if you will, a script that he has probably used on 5 different women, a script he expected you to fall for the same way that other women did. You were not enchanted. You were being played. You were not confused. You were being managed. You weren't special. You were being targeted. And that realization doesn't break your heart. It snaps you back into yourself. It snaps you back into reality. Because the moment that you realize and recognize someone's strategy, their power dissolves. The illusion dissolves. The story dissolves. The version of them you were holding on to dissolves. The hold on you dissolves. That is what real spell breaking is. Clarity. Crystal clear clarity. Not crying, not anger, not devastation, just seeing the truth without the performance. Once that switch flips, once you really see someone for who they are, there is no going back to the version of you that they tried to sell you. It's giving Wizard of Oz. The curtain has been opened. Everything looks different because you're looking at things differently. You're seeing that the Wizard of Oz is actually just a man behind a curtain with a megaphone. So let's get into our last segment of this episode. No tears, just truths. Because after all that unpacking, we need to bring this back to you. The truth is, manipulative people are always going to exist. We cannot escape them. There will always be someone out there rehearsing a persona, fine tuning a lie, or targeting whoever they think is the easiest target to convince. That part is not new. That part is not shocking. That part isn't even the focus. The real conversation is about not making yourself such an easy landing spot for somebody's nonsense. Everything that glitters is not gold, and everything that's polished is not real. Manipulators don't thrive because they are brilliant. In my personal opinion, they're not that goddamn smart, because if you were who you say you are, you would not have to manipulate other people to fuck with you. But they thrive because they are looking for openings. They're looking for someone who has the need to feel chosen, the desire to be validated, the hunger for connection, the fear of starting over, the pressure to follow the story instead of following their instincts. You cannot control who lies to you, but you can control who gets access. You can control who gets your softness. You can control who earns your vulnerability. You can control who gets the privilege of learning you deeply. And that is the part that people forget. Access is earned. Discernment is built. Wisdom is developed. The goal isn't to never be deceived. The goal is to catch it quicker, to shut that shit down faster, and to trust yourself louder. Because once you trust your intuition, once you stop negotiating with what you know, once you stop attaching your value to the attention someone gives you, the whole game changes. Manipulators can't thrive around someone who pays attention. They just can't. They can't survive around someone who asks too many damn questions. And they damn sure can't function around someone who knows their worth outside of their confirmation. Let's take it a step further. Every experience teaches you something. Even the ones that embarrassed you, even the ones that made you mad, even the ones you don't talk about publicly. Every situation sharpens a different part of your awareness, your emotional reflexes, your pattern recognition, your boundaries, your expectations. It's not about beating yourself up for missing the signs. I don't want anybody to take everything that I've just said as a lane to beat yourself up. It's about honoring the version of you who's stronger now because of what you've lived and learned through. So here's the truth with no tears attached. You're allowed to walk away at the first sign of bullshit. Okay? You're allowed to ask follow-up questions when something does not make sense. Because what the hell do you mean 1 plus 1 equals 11? No, it doesn't. You are allowed to require consistency. You are allowed to protect your peace. You're allowed to be unavailable to bullshit. You're allowed to not be impressed by a storyline someone simply can't prove. And you are allowed to shift your standards without explaining yourself. You are 1,000% allowed to say, I don't like how that felt, and adjust yourself accordingly. You are allowed to stop showing up for people who only show you their representative. You are allowed to take your time before believing someone's words. You're allowed to demand alignment and not just affection. You don't owe anyone the benefit of the doubt at the expense of your own clarity. And the more you honor that, the faster you recognize the next Tinder swindler, the engagement swindler, the Danish Deception. Before he even gets 2 sentences in, the quicker you can catch inconsistencies. The sooner you disconnect from people who depend on confusion to keep you close, the easier it becomes to choose yourself first, without hesitation, without guilt, without an apology. That's the real no tears truth. Trusting yourself is the biggest protection you will ever have. This has been another episode of Everything is Onion. Thank you guys for listening and peeling back these layers with me today. I'm your favorite host for the most, Koko, just a girl with a mic and a million thoughts, trying to make sure we're all paying the hell attention out here. And if this episode hit home for you, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Even share your messy Tinder swindler stories with me too. I would love to hear them. And share this with anybody who needs to hear it. Your homegirls, your cousins, your coworkers, the friend that swears she can spot a liar from a mile away, but somehow keeps ending up in the same situations. Send this to her specifically. Okay? New episodes drop every Tuesday and Thursday, so make sure you stay tapped in, stay aware, and most importantly, stay true to yourself. I love you guys. Bye.